Okay, well, thanks for coming. Thanks to Emily for being so kind. Thanks to Domingo and Spring Break for thinking of me to come and speak here. Because, you know, in a way, I'm like a fish out of water. I don't do contemporary art. I mean, I like it and I am interested, but I don't like it as my object of study. I'd rather live it than study it. So my area of study is pre-Columbian art of the Central Andes. And in there, I mean, my interest is the use of most of those plants, not all of them because there's opium in there, by the people of the Central Andes contemporary with the European Middle Ages. So my interest is in the iconography, that the ritual use of these plants and substances, what iconography comes out of it. What is the relationship between art and it, okay? So I know that in our world, in the pre-Columbian world, the use of these substances is an integral part of understanding and participating in life. In us, due to our current propaganda and prohibition things that we have, drugs have become like a stigma. And it is difficult to do research because people don't want to admit to it. Because of course, obviously, you run risks that are higher than other things. But I think that the world at large has learned a lot from the use of these plants since great antiquity. Certainly, in pre-Columbian art and ideologies have been shaped by the use of these substances. So just because we have made a mess of it doesn't mean that the plants and the substances derived from it are a mess. To just jump into the subject, but I would just like to leave you. The two most, I hate to use the word, but the two most sacred or important plants in South America and in the whole Americas is tobacco and coca. And those have been the plants that have created ideologies. They are the plants that shape and the plants that you communicate with other worlds through. But then look at the mess we have made with coca and tobacco. So I think it's not the plants. And I'll deviate from there. I think it's us Westerners with all our schizophrenic point of view to life. Well, anyway, so I just thought that I would select, because you would have to select, because the impact on art, you have to select, do double. What kind of drugs do you choose for a talk like this that is brief, and what kind of artist? Because if you wanted to do a study of the use of drugs by artists in the 19th and the 20th century, it would take a several-volume encyclopedia, and it would take intense research. It's little things. I was talking to a friend now. I was reading a biography about Picasso, forget the author, but the famous fat one. So it says that at the time that he's creating analytic cubism, him and George Braque lived in the Batois Lavoir. That is well known, but whatever they tell you, they are history books, that tenement was one of the most notorious opium dens in Paris at that time. So what were Picasso and Braque doing there? They just like to hang out with people that did opium and related things? Or they were participating? But no history book tells you anything about this. So that would be key, because it would say, what would be the impact of a drug like opium, say, in the creation of analytical cubism and its looks? Okay, but nobody's done it. Maybe it's a failure, maybe it's nothing, maybe they just like living there because it was cheap. But anything is worth a study. So it would need an encyclopedia. So I did two selections. I selected substances that are generally labeled hallucinogenic. Well, the name is a negative name, really, because a hallucination is something that doesn't exist, unless we take it in the old Greek sense, that was to wander in one's mind. Then it's a much really impacting word. So I prefer visionary, although it has its limits like anything else. And there you can include the mushrooms, the tree, let's start at the top, the tree known as Vilca, the one that when Columbus landed in the Dominican Republic, the Taino called Cooba, and it's a really strong, fine powder that is inhaled through the nose, widely in use of over 4,000 years, well-documented radiocarbon dates, not crackpot stuff. Then mushrooms, then the soma of the ancient Aryans, Amanita muscaria, ayahuasca, very popular nowadays. On the bottom, tobacco, the king of vegetables. The cactus San Pedro that contains mescaline, just like peyote at the top, at the bottom end. One is from North America, the other is from South America. And then opium that has influenced incredible amounts of European artists. as well. So in this array, it is a category unto itself, you know. So I think that for me, getting into alcohol or others would signify open a kettle of a different kind. Okay? So, and then I said, well, what artist would you choose? Well, you know, talking to myself when this was first proposed. So I thought, well, two things. One, that I'd be interested in them, of course. But one said, I think that there has been post the era of earthworks. And, well, people like Robert Smithson, that was notorious and an LSD enthusiast. What happened to nature? I mean, to the relationship of artists to nature post the classic period of earthworks in the 60s and 70s. And there, what can you choose from there? You know, I'm continually speaking by myself. So I figure, well, for one thing, Pipilotti Rist, the video artist, that really you could say, well, she is the more divorced from nature that you could think of. But it is not, because she creates in her art a life, a space in which you enter and you behave in there, and that art space is really modified by nature, because most of its stuff, I don't know if you've seen some, takes place in landscape situations, and she attempts to create a landscape in the museum, like her big piece, for example, in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, that took all of the lobby up. Okay? So, and then I said, well, who else? And I thought of Roxy Paine. Roxy Paine that recreates nature with unnatural materials. No? He replicates it with unnatural material. I forgot that I had written this today. And there, you know, his approach to nature is a little bit like Bernard Herzog, where nature is this place that if you let it would eat you up. Okay? But so Roxy Paine has these very subtle ones that are the fields of mushrooms she creates, but he also has the conjoined stainless steel trees. I'll show you all that are really kind of an aggressive nature. Then the other one I thought, well, Fred Tomaselli, because I like the way he synthesizes in his pictures very chaotic events with very ecstatic, blissful events. So I thought this is a different kind of approach to that. And then Carsten Höller, who really has a PhD in insect behavior and didn't become an artist until in the 1990s. So that his work, as opposed to the other people that is a recreation of nature, it's like he investigates it like an anthropologist, like a biologist. And he's a guy that has aviaries at home and coexists with animals. So his art has to do with this human being and interaction with animals, insects and birds and all that. And then the last one is Herman de Vries, a Dutch artist residing in Germany for most of his later life. He's still alive, I'm sorry. And that is the guy that doesn't want to touch nature. He says, nature is sufficient unto itself, so that it doesn't need you. He told a friend that asked him for a letter of recommendation to write for him, and he just said, well, nature does not need you, so that any kind of, does not need you to beautify it, which I thought was an interesting statement. So Herman is a different kind of nature artist in the way he does. So we're going to see some of that. So, but first, I wanted to show you the video of Pipilotti Rist. Just 5 minutes that I think would, because to me, when I first heard about this video, it's titled, I Want to See How You See. And I remember myself, and I'm sure 99% of you, as a child, having just remember a conversation, 10, 11-year-old, where me and friends were kind of trying to take out of ourselves, how do you see what I see? You never had these discussions as a child? I mean, you see, obviously, this, but how do you see it? You know, how does your whole perception, we both agree, which is the important part, this is a chair and it's kind of solid and you can sit on it. But otherwise, how's your perception on it? How does it relate to me and to you? Another thing that interested me when I saw it first time is because in the Aymara regions around Lake Titicaca, people think of the body, of the landscape as a body. You know, so you see villages that are in the head or in the heart or in the belly or on the legs of the mountain ridge. So I thought this is interesting now, a Swiss Western artist projecting the body as landscape. Okay? And another thing that I thought was interesting was this is a portrait of a painter, friend of hers. And then the other thing that interested me is how she chooses popular methods, but like a video, like a music video, like you might see, you don't, but that you could see on MTV or whatever music video. So let's watch this one first, and then we continue with others. If see, I see left you in, oh, everything's so good. No, but I think that she packs so much, and even more when you see her work in an environment that surrounds you, it becomes another thing. She has just made her first feature film called Pepperminta that showed in the Miami Film Festival 2 years ago. I'll recommend it. But I thought that this kind of denatured nature, in a way, is an approach to getting closer to it, even if it is so distant, as you will see also with Roxy Paine. So what I also want to keep in mind as we see these artists now in a quick manner, because we started a little late, that they all share this use of visionary substances, but in addition, there are these notions of repetition, because if you look at her video, these ideas of repetition, accumulation, and elements of performance that are basic elements in shamanic art throughout the world are present in this. So one begins to think, if we want to do an ingredient there, is how much of that repetition and accumulation is innate in our nervous system, and these substances bring it out or emphasize it. I don't mean they are not there, but emphasize it in a way so that you see commonalities, let's say, in people that pursue to modify their states of consciousness, like shamanic life or this artist, that there is also always present, among other things, these ideas of accumulation and repetition and well, of course, death and other elements that you would see. Okay, so let's look at Tomaselli first. And, you know, doing the research for this, I find this quote by him that is very certain, that is how he says, "It does appear that my work toggles between the apocalyptic and the static." Now, if you've never seen in person the work of Tomaselli, a slide just don't do it justice. They are generally about 2 inches in thickness, and they are layers, many layers of transparent resin, and then there is paint, plants, collage elements that when you see it in a slide, they are all in the same plane. But when you see them in reality, they are all going back into space. So generally, yeah, I would say an average thickness of a painting, if you want to call it that, is about 2 inches more or less, so that the light bounces back and they are much alive at the flatness that the photo gives it. Okay, so let's look at several things. I'll show you one of his early works. That is this, that he did quite a bit of this, inspired in star maps, so that he would do all the birds I remember seeing, all the drugs I remember taking. And this is hemp leaves, pills, colored pencil. This is a detail of it, so you get an idea. And so there's mixed there, the birds, the drugs, and the patterns that could be like star maps are there. But this is his early work that then he became, that I mostly put it as an example of what he was. Okay, now he does this kind of really hallucinatory works that look like, if any of you have participated in ayahuasca ceremonies, you know what I'm talking about. And in this, you would see similar things. So I would like to ask him, for example, have you participated in ayahuasca rituals that you are seeing this? Let me show you a detail, see if I can do this from here. No. There, see, this is a little detail of it. He keeps archives at home with all classified drawers full of eyes, full of arms, full of tongues, noses, birds, all kinds of things. And then he makes these things so that when there is a mouth, there are many, let me see where, there are many mouths, many eyes, many arms and legs, and everything repeats to an extreme obsession of repetition. Take a look at another. Then this, this is the contrast I wanted to make. In a certain way, this is like a really apocalyptic kind of work. And they are large, by the way. This I didn't, but these are things about like this. Okay? And this is like a really apocalyptic, aggressive being that he's concocted here. But then, when you go to this other one, fungi and flowers, you have this magic agriculturalist with a that is holding mushrooms. I don't know if you are, I can't stand next to this. If you are familiar with, yeah, it's sort of feedback. With rock art of the Tassili Desert in Algeria, there is a famous mushroom man there, full of mushroom growing out of his body 8,000 years ago. And then Tomaselli seems to have seen this thing. Just look at the hand of the person. Look at his head. But look at the hand first, see? Holding the mushrooms just like the figure from the Tassili over here. Then, this is, so look at his multiple teeth, multiple mouth, multiple ears, and then all kinds of plants, real and imaginary, okay? And then other things like this breathing head, that is, see the size is almost 5 feet by 5 feet. And I'll give you a detail of that, because otherwise it makes no sense to show it to you without the details. Look at this kind of intensity of imagery. You know. He grew up next to Disneyland. He could see Disneyland from home. You know.
No, what happened?
This is what happened with too much Disney. Disney's the devil. Disney's bad for girls. It is. It's this spelunker, in this guy diving into this world of snakes. There's a detail of that. This is very reminiscent of, I don't know if it's aware, there is in the Amazonian cities, Peruvian Amazonian cities of Pucallpa and Iquitos, lately an art movement has emerged of tremendous importance for Latin American art. Everybody's ignoring it because people that go, the critics or whatever, they go to Lima or to Santiago or Sao Paulo. But this is the pits, these are holes in the ground. Big cities, you know, Pucallpa has like 500,000 people, Iquitos has like 1 million people, and there are movements developing there resulting from ayahuasca use are extraordinary stuff taking place. Ignore totally. You never hear about it when people discuss Latin American art. They show you all these European derivatives that the person might well be painted in Paris, you know, like Fernando de Cislo and all the other abstractionists and stuff. It's the same thing, you know, it's derivative art from the colonial period, really, just now. Okay, then this series is called Field Guides, this large painting of this incredible agriculturalist too, that is totally surrounded by butterflies. See, and this is the more ecstatic. See, this is always this thing, the apocalyptic and the ecstatic, you know, going around in his work. And then look at his hoe. His hoe is an energy hoe, cultivating this field full of mushrooms. These are identifiable mushrooms. In this case, these are Psilocybe cubensis, the ones that grow here in the cow patties. So they are totally identifiable by the color, by the cap, by the shape. So that when he's painting these plants, they are represented accurately. Okay, look at this metal destroyer. Show you that it's the more apocalyptic kind of chaotic situation. Well, then let's go on to something different, to Roxy Paine. He's male. All the time that I've seen stuff of his with that name, maybe it was my own. I thought it was a woman, so I was surprised that it's not a woman, it's a guy. But anyway, look at this, which is again this idea of using these substances in order to try to get at least the sensation of understanding what life is about. Okay, and that is one thing that attracts me, because you see many artists. There is this notion that we have since the Romantic period that the artist should express his or her most innermost emotions, feelings, whatever. But what about if instead you use art as your tool for understanding things? Just like an astronomer has his radio telescopes and so forth in order to grasp the cosmos, why shouldn't the artist use these tools in order to understand life, or those aspects of life that interest you? So that, you know, that takes, I think, art from the post-Goya syndrome of the lonely artist working in some place expressing his innermost stuff. In a certain way, you could say, well, who cares? It's kind of arrogant, that idea of why should I care about what your innermost feelings are if you're not telling me how to understand them? You know, the illustration of it is for what? Who cares, really, in a way, if it's just for the arrogance of it? So Roxy Paine takes these things, and he does super realistic depictions of these things. So he studies the way something grows, the way it decays, the kinds of rot that grows on it. So it is part of a process where, like he says, I try to learn each plant species I am working with so well that I can improvise within their rules. Keep that in mind for when I show you his stainless steel trees in a minute. But this is a crop with opium generally and some mushrooms growing. Okay, this is one of his early pieces that he first exhibited in a museum in Tel Aviv, and then in the show Ecstasy in LA, Ecstasy in and about Alter States, the one that opened the new Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles. He did 2,200 mushrooms, all different, made with polymer and lacquer, see, growing out of the cracks of the wall. And they're all different. You know, it's not mold making, they're all, every mushroom is different size, growing in a different stage of growing, and so forth. Then he did that again, then with Amanita muscaria, known as Soma, in which he did these realistic representations of nature. Okay, but then he applies that, see, because this is at least my interest. Whatever you learn by eating mushrooms or whatever your substance that you think is more appropriate for you, how do you bring it? So when he was talking about understanding the language of the plant in order to then make something with it, he has, I'll show you two. This is a tree he had in conjunction with the Whitney Biennial a few years back in Central Park. And then this is one he had in the roof garden of the Met about 2 years ago, which he has this maelstrom that is so weird. I'll go back. See, this kind of tree that is not very friendly in a way. It's beautiful to look at it, but it's not the friendliest thing. But then he puts this connected to the water and to other things, sometimes to pumps, sometimes to different things that reality make it even more disconcerting. This stainless steel tree connected to the plumbing system is bordering in more like a horror movie in a way. That is, yeah.
Put the water on?
No, it's just kind of, I don't see this is in that 130 feet, 29 feet high. Now let's move to Carsten Höller. Obviously, because of my own training in archaeology and so forth, I kind of like his approach. Okay, so let me show you first a little few things, and then his last work, that is a monumental work in Berlin last year. So he became a little bit notorious because, again, in the exhibition Ecstasy in LA, he had this upside-down mushroom room with, where the amanitas were rotating very slowly, about 4 RPMs at the time. So you enter one end and come out the other.
Did you see this in person?
No, I did not see this in person. I wish I had. Yeah. Then, let's see. See, everybody, if you ever done, let's say, mushrooms, one characteristic that mushrooms have for most people is that it develops a playful kind of attitude. They are like little clowns, like jokesters in a way, but they are jokes, little clown of people carrying a joke, but with a mission, with an agenda, so to speak, which is generally extracting out all your creepy stuff and showing it to you in a funny way. But sometimes it gets really, like the humor of the old days that they used to be called black humor. The other day I went to check out FIU a book by André Breton called Anthology of Black Humor, and it was classified as African American literature. And, you don't do it. I thought, what's this? What an ignorant librarian, But so he started making these slides that you can go in. This was the first one that he did the Tate. And I don't know if you've been in the Tate, but there is that central courtyard where there was the crack and so forth. So he connected the things. And so he has done in Belgium, where he's from, and in Sweden, where he lives, he has done it on the street. From apartment windows, the lights come out and communicate, and people can use them outside the gallery space in real life. So this is kind of developed this playful attitude. Okay, but then last year, in November of 11, the new museum, the old station, the old station in Berlin where the trains to Hamburg would depart. Sort of like what they did in Paris with the Orsay. They remodeled the old train station and they turned it into a center for contemporary art. Höller's exhibition was the first, and he took the whole museum. And he did, I don't know if you know about it. Soma is a mythical drink that is praised in the hymns of the Rig Veda, of the people that migrated, the Aryan people that migrated from the northern Himalayas into India, okay, back like 3,000 years ago or so. So it was identified as the mushroom Amanita muscaria by mycologists working back about 40 or 50 years ago. So what he has done in his career is study this mushroom with quite some depth. So this is a whole exhibition dedicated to it. This is the cover of the catalog, and the catalog, instead of being a catalog about the work, is an anthology of text, anthropological text about Soma, so that it doesn't talk about him, or there are not even pictures of the exhibition, really. Some, but not too many. So he kind of changes that, and then what he made was this. The whole museum is a lab. Reindeers love the Amanita muscaria to eat it. They love it so much that when one reindeer eats it and the reindeer urinates, the other reindeers run to drink the pee, because the mucimol and the other ingredients of Amanita pass through, and so all of the reindeers get inebriated to use it. And probably that's how humans learned how to use it. So in Siberian shamanism, Soma is one of the more important elements to modify the state of consciousness of the shaman. So he constructed this whole thing, including that for a fee, I don't remember, as a way of getting money for the old new museum, that mushroom-shaped structure with the ladder, at night if you paid, I remember it was a hefty amount, like €1,000, maybe more. You would stay the night, and Höller himself would serve you some Amanita potion. I don't know how many takers there were for that. I don't know, but I'll show you more. Okay. And his work, you know, he lives with animals. He has, it seems in his home in Stockholm, he has 4 or 5 gigantic aviaries, and other areas with, what's it, the yellow canaries as well. So he kind of, this interaction and communication between human and animals. And the topic of his dissertation for when he did his scientific work was communication between insects and plants. So there, see the reindeers lunching. They could go out. There was an open area where they could wander out. And of course, they're not wild reindeers. They are reindeers from a place where they rented them, of course. Yeah. Yeah, well, so when people see Coyote of Joseph Beuys, they think, oh, they brought a coyote out from the wilds and locked it up on Beuys there. He would have eaten Beuys. So it's a rented animal. It's like this, you know. Well, yeah, it would be. Okay, so there, they were fed. They were the canaries in these balancing things that would move according to the movements. And then the growing process of the growing of the mushroom in the gallery. And then the harvesting of it, the drying and freezing of them, and in other cases,